here with Music Marketing TV. Today we're looking at PSP Xenon. There has been an update since I last looked at it, at least. And so now they've got a really nice preset browser, so kind of cool. It is a compressor plugin, typically seen as a 2-track, but it can be great as a lo-fi effects and distortion unit as well. We'll see what happens when you really crank it. And also as a bus compressor, so you're not limited to just those sections. Our input audio will be this track. Specifically, we're going to be using it on this low end groove sound. It's got some verb on it that'll really nicely pump when we sort of turn things way up, and it's also super transient. There's a lot of transients, so that's just going to be a nice thing to do. Another thing also just on the interface, it's now rescalable. You can just drag here and continually resize it, which is just a blessing. So let's go ahead and dive right in here. So to start off, let's go ahead and just run through the signal chain here. So first you're going to select your input and you're going to drive it so that it actually turns on. It's unique in that it's got 2 limiting stages. So you see there's a limiting stage 1 and a limiting stage 2. The first one deals with sort of the body of the sound, and the second one is sort of clean up, really going after those transients. So with these 2 stages, you could turn one on or off if you want a certain amount of coloration. I'm just going to leave them both on. And for the input, I'm really going to drive this sucker hard because I want to show just obvious examples of what controls do. When you show off subtle examples, it's just a bit tougher to, understand what's happening. So I'm going to turn this all the way up. This is going to be very loud. Get ready. So this brings us to our next thing here. There's an auto button over here. So this will gain match our input. So you'll hear that it will get turned down aggressively now. But what's nice is we don't have to do all these gain moves to try and compare before and after. It'll allow us to make moves like as we go. And it becomes more of like a tonal decision, like it should be. So that's what it sounds like. So I'm in general going to leave this mostly off because I want the differences to be obvious, and we'll do before and after stuff later. Right now, this is just wrapping our head around what's going on. So at the beginning here, we've got some different order filters to drive the internals. There are 2 limiters, and you might be wondering, where are all the limiter controls? Where's the ratio and the knee and all that? Do I have any of these sorts of controls? The threshold? The answer is sort of. They're hidden underneath the hood because they're engineered to do pretty specific things. So instead, we're given the leveler control and then a transient section, which sort of does all those things for you. And so in that way, it's very musical. You really just use your ears and set things where you want them. So to start us off over here, so we're going to go ahead. I'll turn these on. Why not? I think we've got oversampling. I've got this CPU to spare, so I usually turn this on. This just helps with aliasing and intrasample peaking and things of that nature. So moving on down here, we've got our first real meaningful controls here. Not that these aren't meaningful, but this is where you make your big decisions. So transients, you've got react and then predict. So react literally means react, like it's got no look ahead. So it will just straight chop any transients that, have gone through, and it'll clip them. Where over here with predict, there'll be some smoothing because it has some look ahead. So it will do this a little bit more elegantly. So if you want a little bit more that color, perhaps do A, B, and C are going to be a bit more transparent typically. So this is what it sounds like with the transient. Now, the transient right now at 0%, you can essentially see this is an attack knob. So this is a very fast attack. And we've also got a release here. So with the release, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to dial this way back just so we have a really fast attack and release. And this will be just a lot more audible what's going on. Maybe dial this back some. Let's just hear this on react for a second. Okay, now let's do B. Now this is, of course, I'm driving it in an insane amount, but it's just easier to hear. And here's C. I'll go through each one and not say anything. I just click the next one. So hopefully that gives you a bit better of an idea of what these offer. When you send drums and things through this is something, you just check them out. They're color decisions. So with the transients, of course, we have a very short transient response. I'm going to keep the release short just because it really makes it a lot more obvious. And as I bring this up, you'll see more and more of that transient get through. Now, with this additional verb, so if we come down here and make this like really fast again. So here's the one setting, the very, very short, very little of the transient gets through. And here's a lot. You can hear there is some pumping going on. So we could tackle this with the leveler, which is basically like your threshold, knee, ratio, all that stuff, sort of in one package. So if you bring this back, this will sort of start taming that. And you can get the color and that nice sort of grit to it. Now, of course, I'm pushing it hard. You can make this very, very transparent. Just bring this back because listen to how clean that sounds given the ridiculous setting I have. It's pretty dang crazy. It's really good. You could, of course, bring back the release as well. That'll tackle some of the pumping going on there. So with these settings, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to set the attack to be something a bit quicker again. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm sort of torn here. I'll go for 40. So the leveler does pretty much just what we just saw. So it's going to level it for us in a way. So if we have this very aggressively and we gain match this, you'll actually hear it get turned down quite a bit because this is going to essentially flatten a lot more. And then finally, yeah, the link. And I can't remember if I've talked about the link yet or not, but the link has the, you just want to be careful with link because it can mess with your stereo image. So if you could press one channel without differently than the other channel, it can change your stereo image. So in general, a completely decoupled thing will change that. So just be aware of that if that's something you're really concerned with. Or you could have it completely linked and it will process them the same way. So that ideally any stereo differences will remain the same between the two channels and your image will thus be unaffected. Up here, we've got our word length. Now the word length, this is really meant for dithering. If this is the last thing in your chain, you could choose to use this dithering over your DAW's dithering. Now this dithering is very extensive and I don't really want to go into whether or not you should use it. Dithering is one of those things that, just dither at the end. But there are some cool things you can do with this when it comes to bit depth and lo-fi effects. So if I turn these on and you can go down to 8 bits and then they've got all these noise shaping options, which gives you sort of different flavors of a lo-fi to sort of play with. So this is very cool, kind of a use you wouldn't really think to do with this, but it's completely there for you and available to you. Could you imagine if this went down to 4? Oh my word. You get a bit crusher included. So that's a very, very interesting one. But yeah, it's also a fantastic dithering option if you don't like your DAW's native dithering or you want to experiment. This is one to do with it. And then if we come down here, you've got your output. Of course, you can set this. You can use this to set ceiling. But that is Xenon is extremely transparent, like shockingly so, and some really nice transient shaping options. That's all there is to it. So even though there's a ton of small things to think about, the general workflow is very quick, fast, easy to use. It's easy to audition things before and after and make meaningful comparisons. And I really like the update that it's received. This resizing ability is a wonderful thing. And the presets browser is now just a pleasure to work with. If you have any questions about this, feel free to let me know. Subscribe and hit that bell icon for future videos, and have a blessed day.